Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhrutsatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Srimad Bhagavat. Today we're going to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 14. So we want to give an overview about this chapter today. To set the tone, we were discussing Canto 4, Chapter 13, where the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj were described by Maitreya Rishi to Vidura. And Vidura is very inquisitive, and he wanted to know the descendants of Uttanapada Maharaj. And so there, Maitreya Muni explained about the Prachetas, and then about the Dhruva Maharaj. Prachetas were the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj themselves, because he quotes an example where the Prachetas in the sacrificial ceremony, they glorified Dhruva Maharaj even multiple years after his he going back to home, back to Godhead. So, and in that context, he describes the pastimes or the glories of King Anga, who comes in the same lineage. And there he talks about how King Anga was a very virtuous ruler, and he had, even though he was a very virtuous and a good king who was performing devotional service and very dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he had a very bad son, and his name was Vena. And even as a young boy, Vena was highly problematic. He found joy in torturing other small living entities, and he used to even kill his playmates. And he was very cruel by nature. And the sages were the here Vidura was very curious as to why a very noble and virtuous king like Anga Maharaj had to have a son like Vena. And the reason for that was so first of all, once where Anga Maharaj was doing a sacrifice, and Anga Maharaj being very virtuous, and since he takes care of the fact that every detail of the um, offering has to be perfect. Despite his making very good offerings, the devatas were not satisfied, and they didn't take the oblations in the sacrifice. So he was really worried as to why the devatas were not taking his offerings. So he consulted with the sages, and the sages told him that even though everything is perfect, but Anga Maharaj did not have a son, and because of that, the devatas are not accepting it. So they instructed Anga Maharaj to go and make a sacrifice to have a son. So Anga Maharaj heeded to the words of the sages, and he performed a sacrifice to have a son. And at the end of the sacrifice, the Agni Purusha came, and he had the sweet rice or the payasam, and he instructed to give it to his wife Sunita. So this Sunita was the daughter of Mrityu, or death personified. So what happened is the Anga Maharaj had a son through Sunita, and because the father is highly virtuous, and the mother comes from the who is the daughter of Mrityu himself, Vena inherited all the vices and the bad qualities of his maternal side, and he became a very cruel son. And as mentioned, even as a young boy, he had a very strong proclivity to create harm to other living beings. And Anga Maharaj tried as much as possible to correct Vena, but he was not able to rectify or set him in the right path. And at that point, Anga Maharaj decided that he would leave everything to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here is a very important message which Anga Maharaj teaches us, that when things are in our control, then we can try as much as possible to rectify it or make it happen. But if things are beyond our control, then the best recourse we have is to depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there are multiple examples, like how fighting in the Kurukshetra war, that was within Arjuna's control, but the result of the war was a Krishna's will. So that's why Krishna said to Arjuna, Nimitta Bhatram Bhava Savyasachin, just become an instrument and fight for me. So in that way, Anga Maharaj, he gave up his control, where he tried to correct Veena, but instead he took up Vanavas, and then he went to the forest. So so Anga Maharaj, at that time, he was thinking sometimes it's better that not having a son is better than having a good son. Having a good son, because a good son gives you attachment, and it is difficult for us to get out of this material world. But after contemplating, he thought that even though having a bad son is even better than not having a good son, because having a bad son, it gives you detachment. It gives you a way to get past this attachment for this sons in this material world. So he was actually thinking about the quote from Kunti Maharani, where she said, Vipada Santuta Sashvat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavato Darshanam Yatsyat Apunar Bhava Darshanam. So Kunti Maharani is praying that the calamities, they come one after the other, that they come, so that when there are calamities, then I can think about Krishna more. So she is asking Krishna that Vipada, like anytime there is calamity, I want it more, because Bhavato Darshanam Yatsyat Apunar Bhava Darshanam. By seeing you, Krishna, then I don't have to take this birth again. So, and she also recollects how Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshanat Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichirtaha. So, when the Pandavas were poisoned, Krishna protected them from, and then he protected them from Maha Agni when the Lac Palace was said to burn by Duryodhan. Krishna protected them, and then Shan Mahagni Purushada Darshanat, like in when the Hidimba and other asuras, when they come to attack Pandavas, Krishna protected them. Purushada Darshana Asat Sabhaya, and in the cruel assembly of the Kurus, where Draupadi was about to be disrobed, Krishna came and protected the honor of Draupadi and all the Pandavas. Sabhaya, Vanavasa Krichirtaha, and multiple other problems which they had during the Vanavasa. Krishna was always there. Vanavasa Krichirta. Mride Mride Neka Maharatastatro. Even during the Kurukshetra war, all the different arrows which were thrown by the different warriors, Krishna protected them from everything. So here Vena recollected that the only recourse for him is to take up the Vanavasa. Anga understood that that's the only recourse, and then he put the burden on the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna to take care of Vena. So at that point, he took Vanavasa and he left for the forest. So that's what we saw in the 13th chapter. But this is a continuation in the 14th chapter, where so at that point the kingdom was without a king, and so the thieves and the rogues were all trying to take control over the people and loot people. So the sages, who are like the intelligence behind the society, so they were thinking who to appoint as the king. Now that Vena is gone, Anga is gone, and they weren't able to find Anga anywhere because he's taken Vanavasa. So they decided that even though Vena is not of good character, probably they thought that he could be counseled, so they made him the king of the world, and Vena was put in the throne. And as it's difficult to change the dharma of a person, Vena, who was cruelty personified, he started doing all kinds of problem in the country. And So that, but one thing which happened was that Vena, he stopped all the religious activities. He said that he prohibited all the religious activities, and he traveled everywhere, and people were just trembling just at the sight of Vena. And because of Vena, so typically what happens is, if there is a great king, then the thieves and rogues are not they won't take their head, because they will definitely be afraid of the king. But here, even though Vena was not a great king, but he was extremely threatening and torturous. So even the thieves and the rogues, they became afraid, and they didn't come and affect the normal people, because the king himself was doing their job. So they say, so now all the people were completely in fear, and the sages, who are the general council, they went and they thought that they could go and pacify Vena. So they, in the verses 7 to 13, the sages actually go and plan to meet Vena and then pacify him. So they told Vena that the people are in danger and the people are disturbed by the king himself. So the king's duty is to support the prajas, and so they wanted to tell all these things and pacify Vena. And the sages even suggested, so if you, instead of killing innocent prajas, just kill us. And the sages offered to be killed by Vena. But Vena was as he was extremely cruel. And the sages even tried to instill upon him, saying that the primary duty of the king is to uphold the varnashrama dharma, and to let the sacrifices happen. So only if the sacrifices happen, then the devatas will be satisfied, and they will be able to shower the mercy on the kingdom. There will be rain, there will be grains, and there will be prosperity all over. So the Vena was basically stopping the sacrifices. So when they instructed Vena this way, Vena became very offensive, and he said that you sages are all inexperienced. And if you think about it, the king is not none other than the supreme personality of Godhead. So the king's body has to be respected as equivalent to the supreme Lord. So he was thinking about this, and this is typical of narcissistic personality disorder. So Vena definitely had this, where he was just completely obsessed with himself. And even though a king is supposed to be worshipped as a god, but the king himself should not think himself as the god. So that's the same thing we see in the Guru Ashtakam, where they say Sakshat Haritvena Samasta Shastrair. So we should worship the Guru as the supreme personality of Godhead himself. But the Guru himself will not think that he is the supreme personality of Godhead. So here Vena was making that mistake, and he was being offensive not only to the sages, but he was also offensive to the supreme personality of Godhead. So he was envious of Krishna. And the sages thought, now we have tried to counsel Vena as much as possible, but this person is turning out to his life is actually turning out to be envious of Krishna. And he this well, living life this way will not help him in his Krishna consciousness, and it's not good for the society as well. So thinking that, the Brahmanas at that time, they had this ability to even chant mantras and take away life. So the Brahmanas, with their mystic ability, they chanted, and they killed Vena with just their mystical potency. And so this goes on to say, like, it might feel that the Brahmanas are doing this, but this is are doing a rajasic activity. But this is something which we have seen in multiple places, where the sages or the Brahmanas, they are very merciful. And even in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, where we say about the Suta Goswami talking to the Saunaka rishis, they were all gathered in Naimisharanya to perform a great sacrifice. And the reason for the sacrifice was that the Kali Yuga was coming in, and they know that the world is going to go through a lot of turmoil. And for the good of the people of the world, they wanted to do this sacrifice. And even the entire Bhagavatam was asked as because of these questions by these sages, and the Suta Goswami explaining them what happened, and how Shukadeva Goswami narrated this incident to Parikshit. So, and all that was done for the benefit of the humanity. So the duty of the sages, or the Brahmanas is to actually be merciful to the society in general and uplift them. So here, in this way, they actually chanted the mystical mantras and actually killed Vena. So again, now this is kingdom is left without a king, and they're back to square one. And they could even see, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam that they could even see the sand dust storm being created by the thieves and rogues in the far places. They were all coming to the kingdom to actually steal and loot, and they were thinking how they can handle the situation. Now they are without a king, and every bad element in the society has sensed the fact that there is no king. So the sages were very concerned about the welfare of the human society, and then they thought that the lineage of Anga Maharaj should continue. And so what they did was they went to Sunita, the mother of Vena, and she had actually preserved the dead body of Vena. And so the sages asked Sunita if they can give them the dead body of Vena. And the sages, through their mystical potency, they churned the thigh of the Vena's dead body, and this is mentioned in the Bhagavatam. So we don't have we don't have a scientific basis as to how they did it, but this was a highly evolved technique which they knew by their mystic potency, that they could churn the thigh of Vena, and from there all the inauspicious qualities which Vena had, which came from his mother's side, a Purusha or a personality came from that churning, and his name was Bahuka. And he was the father of the Nishada race, and this Nishada race is typically people who are tribal people who have this proclivity to do bad things. And he is the father of that Nishada race, and that first came out. And then the so from Vena's body all the inauspiciousness has left, and the only thing which was left was the auspicious lineage from Anga Maharaj. So now the sages took the arm of Vena, and then the Vena's dead body, and then they churned it. And from there came Prithu Maharaj, who is none other than an incarnation of the Supreme Personality Godhead himself. So, along with Prithu Maharaj, Archi, who is his divine consort, and she also appeared. So, Prithu Maharaj and Archi appeared at the same time from the churning of the arms of Vena. And they are partial representations of Lakshmi and Narayana. So Prithu Maharaj is the Sakti Avesh avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he came and then he ruled the earth, and he set up the path of Dharma. And there is a lot of pastimes about Prithu Maharaj which you learn in the forthcoming chapters. So that's the story of King Vena, and how he was born to King Anga, how he was cruelty personified. And King Vena was made the king after Anga left to Vanavasa. And the sages, through their they tried to counsel King Vena about the duties of the king. But Vena was extremely cruel, and he was narcissistic, and he was against or envious about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the sages, they decided to kill Anga Maharaj, Vena, and then from his body um, they churned out Prithu Maharaj and Archi, who were Prithu Maharaj, who was the one of the glorious emperors of the world, and he was none other than the incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So that's the overview of the fourth canto, chapter 14. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you for a very nice summary.